Hello and welcome to GSM Live. It is May 10th, it's 4 o'clock, which means you are in the right place. My name is Riley.
And I am Ryan, and do we have a show for you?
That is correct. First, I want to welcome all of our 5th grade students that are joining us right now and next Sunday. They're jumping into launch classes, beginning their transition from 5th grade into 6th grade, from Granger kids into GSM. So we are so excited that you are here. Everybody, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, throw a welcome to 5th graders into the chat. And again, so excited that you are here. Now you might be thinking, whoa, there's 2 of them up on the screen. Whoa, they're wearing suits. Are they 6 feet apart? And we just want to let you know that we are, in fact, following the safety guidelines with being 6 feet apart. See, this right here is your standard yardstick, which means that it is 36 inches, which 3 plus 3 is 6. So, if we put 2 of these between us, we should be at a good distance. So that's from my hip. You can safely there. That's about 2 yardsticks. 6 feet. Good. We are good. Glad that we have that out of the way. Now we can move forward. This is our program for tonight. We are going to jump into a game here shortly. And then there will be a message by John and then some worship with John. I'm not going to tell you which John is doing which. You're going to have to stay tuned and find out for yourself. But from right here, let's jump on into the game.
All right, the name of the game is Fake News Announcements, where Riley and I are going to see an event or something that you might find in a church bulletin, and we're going to try to pitch you on it. We're going to tell you, we're going to report on what it is for about 30 seconds, and at the end of all these, Riley and I are going to go back and forth. At the end of all of them, in the comments, I want you to vote who was the better reporter, me or Riley. Riley, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. One, what's a church bulletin?
Church bulletin is something you might find at a church that lists the events and stuff like that. You might also find it on the church website. It's a very comparable thing to the church website.
Interesting. Second question, have we seen these before?
No, so Riley and I actually have not seen any of these. We had Greer check them out, see how good they were, if they were going to be difficult and challenging for us. But Riley and I haven't seen any of these events that we're going to be reporting for. So this is completely new for us. So yeah.
Yeah. Reporting is new for me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's not new for me. You ready to go?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Nope, you.
Cool. Let's do this. All right. This upcoming Friday, we have the Parent Exchange, where you students get to exchange with one of your friends' parents, and you spend the entire evening with them. Maybe you go out to dinner, you go do putt-putt, you go to a movie, but you exchange parents. Then at the end of the night, you come back with your own parents, and maybe you break down a list of pros and cons that those parents were doing, see where you can improve as a child, see where they can improve as a parent or guardian. It's called the Parent Exchange because you are literally, for a night, you're exchanging parents with your friends. That's this Friday, starting at 5 p.m., Be there or don't be there, but it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, I like the bit of the self-evaluation that, at the end, that's the only way you get better. All right, my turn. Let's go. Ryan, that was pretty good. It's pretty good. Here we go. Fake news, events, announcements. Yes. Okay. All right, it is fundraising season for the local youth group, and coming up next Tuesday, there is a cat sitting event. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's a lot of people within the church that own cats, and they need you to cat sit their cats. And and you would be wrong. Essentially what this youth fundraising event is the local church will have a fenced-in area with a lot of cats available. And you can come in, and for $25, you can pick any cat you want and sit on it. So it's going to be great. We raise a lot of money for cat litter at this event. So if you've got nothing to do on a Tuesday night and you've always wanted to sit on a feline, you can do that. It's available. Cat sitting, youth fundraiser.
Riley, you a cat person?
Nope. I'm going to be there.
Cool.
Sitting on cats.
Awesome. All right, I'll go. Have you ever been scared out of your mind of a clown? I have. But the only way I overcame that fear is winning a staring contest with a clown. And so this upcoming Sunday, instead of having our normal service, we're just going to have an hour-long staring contest with a clown. Bring your eye drops. Bring whatever you need to beat the clown, because this is the only way to overcome your fear of clowns. I know from experience. In fact, about 6 years ago, I was deathly afraid of clowns, and I came across one at a festival. I went up to it, and I knew what I had to do. I knew I had to beat it in a staring contest. So I walked up to it, and I said, "It's time." And he looked me in the eyes. I looked him in the eyes. And for the next 30 minutes, I didn't blink, and I won, and I've never been afraid of clowns since. So this Sunday, be sure to come check it out. Clown Staring Contest. Come overcome your fear of clowns. Riley, I know you'll be there.
Yep, because I'm the clown. Next one, here we go. Flushin' Frenzy game. Get ready to flush the competition. It was about 6 or 7 years ago when the new atrium space at the Granger campus was built, and GSM had a part in that and had a fundraiser and raised enough money to purchase the toilets. Well, we like to stay connected with those toilets, so twice a year we have our Flushin' Frenzy game, and essentially what you do is bring your fastest RC boat, doesn't matter how big it is, try to put it in the toilet, flush it, and essentially we're going to just see if the RC boat still works. Because we'll take them back out to the pond where all the toilets go, and we'll race them around the pond, and you know, it's a Flushin' Frenzy game. It's a crazy time, it's a wild time, and you know, hope to see you there. Flushin' Frenzy.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, we'll each go about 2 more times. We'll each go 2 more times. Baking with Aunt B. How many of you have met Aunt B? Well, if you haven't met Aunt B, then you should come to our event where we are introducing Aunt B, and we're going to bake with her. We are going to have a fun time baking cookies, pies, cakes, anything you can bake, we are going to be baking with Aunt B. And at the same time, she is going to be telling her life story of how she became a world-renowned, world-famous baker. That's this upcoming Wednesday. We're going to be doing that from 5 to 7 p.m. Baking with Aunt B, where we're going to be baking all this stuff. Be sure to bring your apron, bring your chef hat, and we're going to be baking, having a great time. Not only baking up food, but baking up friendships and good times. This Wednesday.
You know what I heard? I don't know if you've heard. She's related to the Muffin Man.
Do you know the Muffin Man?
Drury Lane. All right, next one. Student Ministry Winter Retreat in Mount McKinley, Alaska. You might be thinking to yourself, Riley, we already have a winter retreat. We go up to Spring Hill. Well, we're throwing a second one at you, and we're going to Alaska. And no, we're not flying to Alaska. We're going to snowshoe to Alaska. All right, there's plenty to see on your way there, but to make sure that we get there in time for winter retreat, we actually have to leave next weekend. So make sure that you register and sign up. No guarantees, but you might see a moose, maybe Sarah Palin. I don't know. You just might have to go on the winter retreat to Alaska, which is leaving next week, because we're snowshoeing there. It's going to be a blast.
All right, this is the last one for me. Riley's got one more after this, and then remember, you're voting in the comments who's better at reporting these events. Food fight, middle schoolers versus high schoolers. Yeah, it's a food fight. What else do I need to sell you on? Literally, you're going to be there. You are middle schoolers. You're going to be throwing food at maybe at your leader, maybe at your older brother or sister. It's going to be a food fight between middle schoolers and high schoolers. It's going to be in the auditorium. We're going to have spaghetti. We're going to have pizzas. We're going to have sloppy joes. We're going to have chili. Anything you can throw that will get super, super messy. It's going to happen. We're telling you this right now because it's happening this Thursday. Be there. It's from 4 to midnight. It's that long. It's an eight hour food fight, and it's nonstop. There's no food break because you're getting food thrown at you. If you want to eat the food, you're going to probably lose the food fight. So be there this Thursday, 4 to midnight, middle school versus high school. Winner takes the cake.
That was good. Ryan, it sounded like you just described the big game party that we have every year.
Just about. Except middle schoolers don't have to leave at halftime.
Right. Next time you're at the big game party, just take a second after about 15 minutes and just look at the ground, and it will look like there's a food fight happening. That was a good one. Ryan. Way to go. Here we go. This is my last one.
Last one. This is the last one.
Hungry Hippo with senior citizens. It is the time, and you're thinking, oh, they're just going to have a bunch of Hungry Hippo board games out, and everybody's going to be wearing masks, and there's going to be plexiglass and all of that. Well, you're right about some of the safety precaution stuffs, but no board games. We're bringing in real hippos. Real hippos for this thing, and essentially what it is, we're going to line the Hungry Hippos up behind safety glass, and you're going to be partnered with a senior citizen. And it's just going to be you and them for, I think it's like an 8-hour event, and you just kind of walk down the line of the hippos that we have, and you just throw them food, whatever they eat, which I think they eat grass. Not sure. I did a report on this in 5th grade. Miss Maroney would be sorely disappointed in me right now. Yeah, I don't know what they eat. Hopefully they don't eat senior citizens.
Or students. All right, I think your 30 seconds is up. So
That's
that
true.
was fake news announcements. Remember, in the comments, I want you to vote who was the better reporter, me or Riley. Maybe you think you could do a better job at reporting and coming up with fake news than either of us. And if that's the case, what we want you to do is send us a video of you doing fake news reporting. Make sure you get your parent or guardian's approval, but send it to us at GSM at grangerchurch.com for email, or send it to us, tag us on Instagram, Facebook. So we can have fun that way, but be sure to vote in the comments who you think was better, me, Riley, or yourself. And we'll see who the winner is.
Right on. Thank you very much, Ryan. Well, we are going to continue on with our service. Up next, you will hear a message as we continue on in the series Lifeline from John.
Have you ever been afraid of being alone? I remember when I grew up, being alone wasn't something that I got afraid of too much. until it got dark outside. See, when it was light out and the sun was out, I was fine being alone out in our backyard, doing some stuff kind of in the woods there, or even going in the basement. We had one of those creepy basements. So the house I grew up in was like an 1890s farmhouse, and it was what was called a Michigan basement. There's no drywall, there's no entertainment center down there. This was like big old stones they found in a field, and they just stacked them up to make like the foundation wall, and it was creepy down there. And the staircase was creepy as well, because it wasn't one of those normal staircases that has like the steps and the riser pieces to it. No, it's just the steps. So like anything underneath there, you could just reach out and grab from the underneath the riser side. So it was all fine when it was light out, when it was daytime, but my imagination got going. When it got dark out and I was alone, I started thinking through some things. I'd go into that basement, and when I was coming up and I knew it was just dark and it was nighttime, you better believe me, I was high-stepping up those stairs just to get up as fast as I could so nothing could grab my ankles from underneath there. Or if I was outside as a kid and it was dark out, and maybe I went to put some toys away that I'd left out, and I was out in the shed, out in the backyard, and I was heading inside, and it was dark, and you start hearing some things, and I'm walking in, and you start kind of doing that quick like walk shuffle thing because I'm afraid. I was alone, and I got to be afraid. And when it was dark out, alone felt scarier. Have you ever been afraid of being alone? I mean, can you relate to some of the stuff I'm talking about? Maybe it was when you were a younger kid too, and you had a moment, you had a situation where you felt alone and you felt afraid. We've been talking about how great friendships should be lifelines when we need help. You know, they're kind of like a safety net around a trampoline, which, side note, you can't buy a trampoline anywhere right now. We're trying to get one for our kids. They're sold out across the country because everyone's staying at home and they all bought all the trampolines. But a good safety net around a trampoline, it'll help. You know, when you're jumping, when you're bouncing, when you fall, it'll hold on to you. It'll keep you safe. It'll hold you in there. But there are going to be times where it feels like you're jumping with no net. It'll feel like there's no friends around you. You won't have that safety, that security. And when you feel like you're alone, it can get really scary. So what are some of these scenarios that you may face, situations you may face where it feels like this? Well, when your family or friendships change, they can feel lonely. When you lose someone you love. Honestly, when you hear about a tragedy in the news, you may become afraid, you may become concerned, and it can feel lonely as this stuff is being bounced around in your head and you're thinking about this. When you have to change schools, that can be lonely. You know, fifth graders, as you make your way into middle school, it can feel lonely at first. Like it's a new place, new hallways, new teachers, new classes. And if you don't have some friends around you, it can feel lonely at times. Another situation is when you have a secret. When there's something that you know and you're protecting it or you're holding it in and you have a secret, that can be a lonely place. When you or someone you love is sick, it can be lonely. When you're not sure about the future, these are all situations where you may end up feeling alone and afraid. The thing is, when we feel and when we face the dark times, alone feels scarier. Just like when I was a kid and it was dark outside, being alone felt scarier. When you face the dark times, the hard times in your life, alone can feel a lot scarier. And here's the interesting thing. Jesus was no stranger to loneliness. He had lonely moments, moments where he could have felt afraid or alone as if no one else was around him. But he also was no stranger to great friends. In this series, we've been looking at some of the times that Jesus was a friend to someone and seeing his example that he set for us and what we can learn from that, how we can live that way in our own friendships. And there's this passage I'm going to read from. It's in the book of John. It's chapter 11. What's going on here is one of Jesus' friends, Lazarus, he's dying. He's sick and he's going to pass away. And Jesus isn't near. The disciples, they're not near. And so Jesus gets word of this, and then he says this in verse 7. And then Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." And that's where Lazarus was at. So he said, "Let us go back there." "But Rabbi," they said, "a short while ago, the Jews there, they tried to stone you, and yet you are going back?" And Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. As when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light." After he had said this, he went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up." And his disciples replied, "Lord, if he sleeps, he'll get better." Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him." And then Thomas, who was also known as Didymus, another name for him, said to the rest of the disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." So there's this crisis situation going on. Lazarus, a much-loved friend of Jesus, the disciples, he's died. And Jesus wants to go back to the place where he's buried. He wants to go back and see the family. But his disciples know that going back is dangerous. Because like it says in the passage, the Jews in Judea, they were confused about who Jesus was. They were threatened by him, by his position, by his power. And so they had tried to stone him. They had tried to kill him last time they're through. And so the disciples were thinking, if they're trying to kill you, they're going to try to kill us. So Jesus, don't you remember what happens when we go through Judea? We're not supposed to go there anymore. And of course, Jesus knew that Judea wasn't safe. But he was more concerned about his friends than his own safety. He wanted to show his friends that they weren't alone in this dark time. He knew that they must be feeling some things. He knew they must be feeling afraid. He knew they must be feeling alone. He didn't want them to feel that. Because Mary and Martha, you might remember hearing stories of them, they were Lazarus' sisters. And so Jesus, with the disciples, wanted to go back and see them, be with them. He wanted to show his friends how things go when you stick together. So one of Jesus' disciples, Thomas, one we just talked about, he said, let's go. If we die, we'll die together. Which, if your friends say that to you at some point, it may not be the best idea. Whatever you're thinking, if they say, hey, if we're going to die, we might as well die together, it's probably a bad idea, whatever you're about to do. But it's an interesting thing here, and it brings us, this is a great point about friendship that we learn in this story. And it's that when you stick together, you feel less alone. When you stick together, you feel less alone. Because there are options here. Jesus could have gone back to Judea on his own. He could have gone to see Lazarus, and he says, hey, listen, if you guys are afraid, that's fine, but I got to go be with Lazarus. I got to go be with Mary and Martha. But Thomas said, no, we're going to go together. We're going to stick this thing out. So if the example is that Jesus did this for his disciples, that he was a friend of them, he met them in their lonely, scary, dark times, don't you think he would do it for you too? I think he'd do it for me. I think he'd do it for you as well. If Jesus shows us that he'll never leave his friends all alone, Jesus gives up this of himself. Don't you think the same is true for you, that he will never leave you alone in this? There's a lot of moments in life that may leave you feeling isolated and alone, but we don't have to stay that way. When we're afraid or we're grieving or we're alone, Jesus gives us himself and God gives us each other. There's another passage I want to read. It comes from the book of Ephesians, and Paul is writing this to the church in Ephesus. And he says to them that you guys, you're to follow God's example and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God. We're supposed to be imitators of God. We're supposed to follow an example. So, if we're going to follow his example, we have to look closely at the example he sets for us. And we should be striving to be more like him in every area of our lives, including our friendships. We need to look at how Jesus treated his friends, how he loved his friends, how he showed up for his friends in these lonely and scary and dark times. And just like Jesus loved his friends so deeply, he refused to never leave them alone, we realize that friends that imitate God never leave each other all alone. So Jesus both taught this and he modeled real friendship and community for us. He didn't live life alone. Jesus chose not to. He could have gone about life very different ways. But Jesus lived his life in real and authentic relationships with the 12 disciples, with even 3 of them that were even closer to him amongst them, with other friends like Lazarus and Mary and Martha. Jesus loved people deeply and he loved them well. And when his friends were suffering, he refused to leave them alone, even when it was dangerous for him. And that's what great friendships do. Great friends will do for you what's necessary. They'll do what Jesus invites us to do in this. Because see, godly friendships never leave you all alone. Godly friendships never leave you all alone. So like Jesus modeled for us, godly friends are friends who, they'll move closer when things get rough. When things are dark, when things are scary, when you're going through a hardship, they'll actually become closer. They'll step closer to you. They won't back away because they're worried or they're afraid or they're nervous or they're anxious about this. They'll actually get closer to you when they see that you're going through these things. That they'll show up for you in those hard times. They know how lonely and scary the dark times can be, and they can even bring some light into your life when things are feeling dark. Godly friendships never leave you all alone because it matters to God that you're never alone. And through our friendships, we can show the love of God in a real, tangible way as we show up for one another. And I just want to say, no matter who you are, where you come from, 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, high school leaders, adult leaders, we're all going to face lonely times, dark times, scary times, times where we feel afraid. There's no guarantee that you won't face something like that. Listen, I'm 38 years old, and even in this last year, I've faced some times that have felt lonely. I've lost family members. I've had family members that have been sick. And we've all been living in this pandemic where we're all kind of isolated. We're all kind of alone. Now, yes, we do still have our families around us, and there's a gift in that. But we're missing our community. We're missing some of the friendships that we get to have. And I love that we can still connect on YouTube here and in the Zoom groups, but there will be something about just being back together that will be so incredible. We know what it is to be alone and what it is to feel that way. And there will be times where you need a few people to gather around you, just like Jesus did. Now, in this story with Lazarus and Mary and Martha, it ended with miraculous things happening. I mean, Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And in your situation, your circumstance, when it feels dark and friends gather around you, it may not end with something like a miracle, like someone being raised from the dead. But some amazing things can start to happen when we show up for each other, when we're there in those times. You know, when you're feeling discouraged, when you're feeling alone, when you're feeling afraid, and friends show up and they're there for you and they don't leave you alone, in those times, your hope could grow. You might be able to see the other side of the season that you're in. You might find yourself laughing again, smiling again. You might just realize that you're not alone. You'll feel at a deep sense that you have friends around you, you have people around you. You know, and that someone can pray for you the words that you don't even know how to pray at that time as friends show up. And at the very least, one of the most powerful things is when friends are just there. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to fix anything. They just sit with you. And they're there and they're present with whatever you're going through. Because see, when life feels lonely, it's easy to believe the lie that we are alone, that we're unsupported. Maybe we're even unworthy of friendship. And that's why God wants to give us a lifeline of community, a lifeline of friendships around us. Because when you feel alone, godly friendships remind you that you belong to a community of people who love you, who are fighting for you, who are standing with you, who are encouraging you. Now, they may not actually die for you. I mean, not many of us will actually have to lay down our lives for one another. But in a way, we do die. We die to our own conveniences. We die to our own preferences. We die to our own schedule. When we show up for our friends, when we enter into whatever they're going to, we die to our own desires, our own preferences, because we love our friends. We show up for them. We care for them. And wouldn't it be incredible to know that you have friendships like that? Not just think that you do, but actually know that you do. People who will never leave you alone. And I'm not sure where you're at right now. I'm not sure if you have friends in your life right now like that. And so here's a couple things, a couple of tangible things that we'll wrap with on things you can do this week and to press into this. First thing is, if you're feeling alone, I want to encourage you to get alone with Jesus. Now, I mean, we learn in this story that Jesus is offering this type of friendship, this type of connection with Mary and Martha and Lazarus and the disciples, and I think he offers it to you and to me as well. That's what Jesus did. He came to this earth to live and to die and to live again so that we can find new life in him, and we can find connection in him. And so how do you do that? I mean, how do you spend time alone with Jesus? One simple way that you can do anytime, any place, anywhere is pray. Now, I know that feels like maybe like the churchy Sunday school type answer, but what do you actually do then? How do I pray? Whatever you're feeling, just say it to God. If you're feeling alone, just real honestly say, God, I feel really alone right now. I think I have friends, but I don't feel like they're out there right now. I'm alone. I'm scared about what's going on. I'm nervous about going into middle school. I'm worried for my family member who's sick. I'm scared about this next move coming up. Just say whatever is actually on your heart. And then ask God for his presence. God, will you come near to me? Will you help me feel like you're there so I don't feel so alone? We read another passage in Scripture where Jesus says, draw near to me, and I'll draw near to you. Draw near to me, and I'll draw near to you. So take that step to spend some time alone with God, and he will show up. He'll be present for you. Second thing is to tell someone you feel alone. If you're going through a hard time, tell someone you feel alone. Maybe it's one of the GSM staff. Maybe it's one of your small group leaders. Maybe it's a friend of yours or a parent. But take that step to say, hey, I'm feeling really alone right now. I'm going through a hard time. Maybe let your parents know. Maybe one of the leaders, like, hey, I'm looking for some deeper friendships. Can you help me figure this out? Listen, everybody in middle school goes through this. Everybody in middle school goes through the hard time of finding friendships, finding people you can count on, trust on. I did it. The GSM leaders did it. Your small group leaders did it. Middle school can be tough, so just ask for some help from some of the people that love you and care about you around you. And third thing is take a step into godly friendships. It's one thing to ask God for these things. It's one thing to let your parents or someone around you know that you need this, but to actually take a step to move forward into this. And so it's why we focus so much on small groups around here in GSM. In fifth grade, you'll have a chance to jump into some fifth grade groups, but I know it's not new to you. You've had a chance all through Granger Kids to sit around with some friends and discuss what God's doing in your lives, so share your highs and lows. And it's why we travel together in community. And so engage in that. Follow up with each other. Be a part of the Zoom groups coming up here in a little bit. And do more. Go to camp together this summer. Sign up together, request to be in a cabin together, and go through these experiences together. Take a step into these friendships. Invest into these friendships. Spend time together. And if you don't feel alone right now, if you're actually thinking right now as you've talked through this about friends and names came to mind that you're so grateful for these people in your life, then continue to step into that. Look around and ask maybe who is it that doesn't have these types of friends? Who could we invite to be a part of our community? Who could we reach out to make sure that they never feel alone? Because remember, godly friendships never leave us all alone. So GSM, let's stick together. We need each other. So through this time of being staying at home, and as things start to open back up again over the summer, and we see each other again finally, and we get to experience camp together and all that's going on, let's stick together. Let's support each other. Let's throw a lifeline to one another and create a community where we can do that, where we can take our next steps towards Christ and we can do it together. Let me pray for us. God, thank you that we don't have to go through a life alone. That we know for a fact that you are there, you are with us, you are present, and we can turn towards you. Anytime that we're feeling alone or afraid, scared of what's going on in our lives, God, that you are the ultimate lifeline we can turn to. But not just that, but God, you give us friendships, you give us community through the church, through people around us who are following you as well. God, help us to take steps this week to live more fully into that. If we have great friends, help us to continue to be a great friend to them. Help us to grow in that. Help us to look for others who may need a chance to be invited in, to have a seat where they can feel welcome and included. And God, if someone's going through something right now, give them the courage to say something to a leader, to a friend, to a parent that they're kind of feeling alone. And God, would you just show up in their life and help them realize right now, wherever they're at in their living room, watching GSM Live, that they're not alone. God, would you make your presence known to them so that they can feel that and sense that? And God, watch over all of us. Help us be healthy and safe in the days ahead until we can be back together again. It's in Jesus' name that we pray all this. Amen.
To the modern way, trying to be somebody I'm not, but it's not what I want. Tell me there's another way. All of the lights are chased and now faded. All the cheap thrills were only time wasted. Tell me why society's plan should define who I am. Surely there's a higher way. All of my best friends are sick of pretending. So much is missing, so give us the real thing. I know it's you. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. I don't want a stereotype to decide who I am. They never knew me anyway. I'm over trying to find the next hype, cause the hype never lasts. And I'ma go another way. All of the lights are chased and now faded. All the cheap thrills were only time wasted. Tell me why society's plan should decide who I am. Surely there's a higher way. All of my best friends are sick of pretending. We want the truth. Na na.
right, thank you so much for joining us today. Before you go, we have a couple of quick announcements. Number one.
Wait. These aren't fake news. These are real announcements, right?
These are real
okay.
news announcements. Remember,
that's helpful.
the previous segment that him and I were on, that was all fake news. None of that stuff's happening.
No.
But this stuff is real. This is real announcements happening. Number one, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page so you can stay up to date with the latest GSM happenings. Number two, if you have a prayer request or you just want to reach out to someone on the GSM team, text our GSM Google hotline. The number is here on the screen. Text us, it'll be anonymous, and we can pray for you or we can connect with you that way.
Absolutely. And coming up here shortly, we're going to be jumping into Zoom groups like we have been the past couple of weekends. And so it's going to be the same link that we've used for the past couple of weekends, and it might be in a parent or guardian's email, or it might be in your email. It's whatever email is tied to what you check in at a regular GSM service. And next week is the last GSM of the school year. It's the last one, but just because the GSM lives are done doesn't mean that the connection ends there. We're hoping to stay connected with you throughout the summer, and I'm looking forward to the summer. I think it's going to be a fun summer.
Yeah, I think I overreacted. GSM ending's sad, but the summer is going to be full of fun stuff.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. And another reminder, jumping into Zoom groups. Hope you have a fantastic week. Bye.